You know how Silicon Valley is always buzzing with the next big thing? Well, what happens when one of those big promises hits a brick wall? Today, we're going to look at the story of a startup that blew over 300 grand chasing the AI dream, only to find out it was a complete nightmare. And this isn't just about one company messing up. Nope, it's a huge lesson in how hype can basically blind an entire industry.
So it all kicked off right here, in the dead of night, with a single Slack message that was basically the beginning of the end for this founder's big AI dream. I mean, that's the kind of notification that makes your heart just sink into your stomach, right? And this was the number that set off all the alarm bells. $18,000 for one single month of using the latest AI model. That is a crazy amount of cash for any startup to burn through. But the real question is, what were they even getting for it? And here is the absolute kicker. All that money, it was going toward a tool that was actively making their customer service worse. This wasn't the price of innovation. This was the price of a total failure. It was giving answers that were, and this is a quote, confidently wrong. Ouch. So let's get into the first part of this story, the wake-up call. That absolutely shocking $18,000 bill wasn't just a line item in a budget. It was a real moment of truth that forced the founder to look in the mirror and start asking some really, really hard questions. So he started reaching out to other founders, other tech leaders, with this one simple question. He wasn't after some fuzzy promise about the future. He just wanted to know, is anyone at all, actually making money from their big AI bet? And boy, were the answers he got revealing. Which brings us to our second point, Silicon Valley's shared dream. What he found out was that this was happening everywhere. It wasn't just his company. The whole ecosystem was trapped in this collective fantasy that nobody wanted to admit was just, well, a dream. So the first excuse he heard all the time was this one. Oh, we're still testing. He even heard this from companies that had been testing for over a year. At some point, testing is just a nice way of saying it's not working. Then there was this little confession, usually said in a much quieter voice. The huge pressure from investors to just have an AI story to pitch, whether it made any business sense or not. The fear of looking like you're behind was driving these incredibly expensive decisions. And this was the most popular response of all. Just this blind faith that the next version, the next update, would magically fix everything that's broken with the current one. It's the ultimate way to just kick the can down the road, right? And this just nails the psychological trap at the center of it all, social proof bias. It's this simple idea that, hey, if everyone else is running toward that cliff, it must be a good idea. In a high-stakes place like Silicon Valley, that kind of thinking is pure rocket fuel for creating massive tech bubbles. Okay, so let's move on to section 3 and actually look at the math. Because as soon as the founders started crunching the numbers, this whole illusion of AI being super efficient just completely shattered. Okay, so take a look at this breakdown. It's pretty stark. The total monthly cost for the AI tool, you've got API fees, specialized engineers, servers. It all adds up to that $18,000 video. Now, the 2 human reps it was supposed to replace, just $7,000 a month. So get this. They were literally paying an extra $11,000 every single month for the privilege of giving their customers worse service. This wasn't an investment. This was a cash bonfire. And the board's reaction really just captured how absurd the whole situation was. They weren't just lighting money on fire. It was, extremely sophisticated, cutting-edge fire, the most innovative fire you could ever imagine. This chart says it all in one picture, doesn't it? You see that investment line shooting for the moon while the actual performance improvement is just flat, totally flat. This is the perfect picture of what happens when massive hype runs into a very, very disappointing reality. So after they pulled the plug on the whole AI project, the founder noticed something really interesting, which gets us to our fourth point, the hype cycle. He realized the people who sold him on the AI dream didn't just pack up and go home. Nope, they just found a new dream to sell. He saw the exact same script being used to build hype for small modular nuclear reactors, to power all this AI. Find a real problem, pitch a revolutionary solution, totally ignore its current flaws, promise it'll be ready soon, and the most important part, get funding right now. It just proves that the real product being sold here isn't technology, it's the story. And that brings us to the most painful part of chasing these stories. The true cost wasn't really the $300,000 they burned, it was the opportunity cost. All the important, valuable things they didn't build because they were so distracted by the shiny new object. I mean, while the team was stuck babysitting a broken AI, a mobile app customers were begging for got pushed back 18 months. Key platform integrations got delayed, they lost clients, and one of their best developers just quit out of frustration. They were basically innovating their way right out of business. So, what happened when they just shut the whole thing down and walked away from all the hype? Well, that leads us to our final section, the power of being boring. They made a pretty radical decision to just go back to basics. They chose to be boring. Yeah, instead of chasing the next buzzword, they just went back to what works. They stabilized their core product. They actually started talking to their customers again. They hired people for fundamental skills. They fixed their documentation. And they focused on keeping the customers they already had. It's not glamorous, but man, is it essential. And the results? They were incredible. 6 months of doing that boring stuff led to more growth than a whole year of messing around with AI. It proved that solving the real problems your customers have today is what moves a business forward, not chasing some imaginary future. And that was the ultimate lesson, learned after a very, very expensive education. Success isn't about being the first one to jump on a trend. It's about being smart enough and brave enough to ignore most of them. And so that leaves us with a pretty powerful question to think about. In our own work, in our own companies, how much of what we do is because it's actually needed versus just trying to sound impressive? What are the real problems we would solve if we weren't so afraid of being left behind by the next big thing? Now that's a business worth building. Everything else, it's just noise.